What up, lighting team? This is a tutorial on how to program in Onyx. This is something that a few of you kind of know pieces of, or maybe the whole thing on, but this is just going to be talking through how to do this from start to finish. And the cool thing is, once you know how to do it for one type of light or one set of lights, it's very easy to translate that knowledge across all of our lights. So I'm going to try to cover as much as I can, but not drag on forever. So first thing you're going to do, obviously we have these playback pages here with the, pre-programmed buttons, that kind of thing. Those are all pre-programmed elements, as it were. Some of those have multiple parameters saved in them, sometimes just one, especially in the case of band backlight here, just controls one group of lights. So I'm going to start really simple, actually just programming a basic blinder intensity control, okay? So there's a couple of screens that you're going to want to know here. The programmer, this actually just shows you what's being sent to lights right now and whatever's in your programmer. Sometimes it's helpful. Oops, I bumped the mic. Sometimes it's helpful to look at if you're wondering exactly what values you're sending to lights. I don't use it a ton when I'm programming just because of the way we program. You got the fixtures screen, which literally shows you every single light in the system, and you can just scroll up and down to see them all here. You notice some of these have values on them. That's because I actually have some Q stacks fired right now from an event that was happening earlier. But you can see, and you can actually kind of additively select just by clicking on them different fixtures here. That would be a weird group of lights to program something for. And then you've got your groups screen, which I have kind of custom configured based on the lights that we have on the stage at the moment. This will change from one stage design to the next, although a lot of things like the intels and the color bands and the megapars stay the same. But like, what we call our patterns at any given time might be different. But most of the time when programming, especially if you're trying to program effects or colors for groups of lights, groups are kind of the way to go. It's a lot easier and quicker than the fixture screen. But sometimes, like especially if you're programming a position for intels, you have to use the fixture screen because you have to go through each light and position them manually for the most part. Selected queue list. Well, you don't use this a whole ton in programming, but you can select a queue list and modify it by right-clicking on it. Sorry, I bumped the mic again. Right-clicking on it, and then you close this annoying window that comes up, and then click Selected Queue List, and you'll notice that Band Backlight Off is now selected. I can adjust its fade time, and whatever. You just want to make sure the Edit mode is turned on there. And finally, the Effects Program screen. This is kind of a starting place that's helpful. You don't have to use this, but it's a helpful starting place for programming effects, and we'll come back to that. I'm going to go back to the Show tab here. Your best friend in programming is this little square icon right here. This is going to bring up some of your key controls that you're going to need when you're programming. The main one here, well, one of the main ones, clear. If you have something in the programmer, that means you've got a collection of parameters and or light values together. If you say, this looks like garbage, I need to start over, you can clear. You also want to make sure your programmer is clear before you program something, because the way we have Onyx set up, especially if you were to look at say page 2 here, we've got different controls for the megapars intensity and different controls for their color. So you wouldn't want to program a queue that has intensity and color information in it. And so because of that, especially if you're programming a lot at once, it's important to make sure your programmer is clear, fresh and clean every time you change the type of parameter or value that you're programming. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm just going to make sure I'm still recording here. Look at that, I am. Great. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's the clear button. Delete is useful if you want to delete something. Let's see, is there anything I could delete that I don't need anymore? This pull pattern effect is irrelevant. So if I want to delete a Q stack here, I can click delete. Then I click on the item, and you'll notice it says down here in this command line, it says delete Q list playback button 9.51. And then if I just hit enter, bye-bye. I can do the same thing here. Just like so. That's delete. Then you have record. That's the granddaddy. This is the button you press when you want to record something. We'll come back to it as I actually do it here in a minute. And then some of these other buttons here are the update and load buttons. I find don't work exactly how the Onyx documentation says they should, and so I tend to use a different method if I actually need to update a previously recorded queue stack. And so really clear, delete, and record, and actually move. Move is another fun one. Move and copy. They're pretty simple. If I wanted to move this, I'd click move, click the effect, and then click where I want to move it. That works with any button. So if you needed to rearrange something, boop, you can do it just like that. And then copy does exactly what you think it does. Click it, just like that. Make a copy. This is how, let me delete these because that's not helpful. Excuse me. Stuff in my throat. This is how we have a mega power control here and here. What I did is I created these mega power controls here, then I copied them to page 2. And then you'll notice they obviously work together in sync. So that's copy and move, pretty simple. Most everything else we don't use in our usage of Onyx. So copy, move, delete, clear, record are your friends. So let's program something. If I go to groups, let's do something with blinders because that's easy to start. So I'm going to grab our current blinder group here. Another helpful thing, and I've noticed I've still got that selected. When I program, I like the room to be dark, and I only like to work with the specific light I'm working on. It just makes it easier. I like to close the room. I like to haze the crap out of it and clear. So now I've got everything released. You'll notice if I go back to group screen, it still has that selected there, the blinders group. So I can program from any screen. I like to be on the show page when I program. I'm just going to grab an empty page here. And now, if I want to program, say I want to program a 20%. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over that. You can adjust these values really easy just by clicking and dragging. You'll notice my mouse disappeared there. And I can just click and drag my mouse up and down to adjust that value. If I double click on it, it'll actually give me kind of a preset percentage table thing here. So you can do it that way as well. The other way is if you click on this, I always call it the eye. I don't know what it's supposed to be. If you click on this tab here, it gives you access to all of the parameters that the currently selected light or group of lights supports. We'll get into some of this other stuff later. I can actually program effects for these lights. Again, we'll come back to that. But for now, it's for intensity. Let's say I'm really happy with that 20%. I've got that. You notice that's red. And it's in the programmer. It shows me all the individual lights that are actually in that group there. And they're all at 20%. So now that I'm happy with that, I'm just going to click record. And it's going to give me some options here. Everything is how it should be. Just leave it. And you'll see it says record right here. So it's ready. It's waiting. Now I just click on the spot I want to record it to. It says name it. So if I was actually doing this, I would say, blinders 20%. Yo. And then just like that, it saves it here. Now I can, obviously you can't see it, but if I clear my programmer, just released or cleared out that value. And if I click on this, I can affirm that in real life, the blinders are now at 20%. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to do it one more time with a different light. Groups. Let's say I wanted to do it with the side patterns. So you notice I have a couple of side patterns groups here at the moment. I've got a left and a right group, so I can program them separately. We can program them separately. And since these guys are like the collectively left and right are the side pattern group, it selects both of those when I click on the one. Hopefully that makes sense. Go back to show. I'm just going to program a 73% intensity for no reason. And then I will record that by clicking record. Picking a random spot. Side patterns. 73%. Sure, that's helpful. Yeah, same thing once again. And I can just fire that back up. So that's how you program a value like that. Now, let's say that I was programming a side pattern from scratch and I wanted to program some colors. I would go back to groups, make sure I've got them selected, go back to show because I can. And if I click on the eye here, I can switch the parameter that I'm controlling down here just by clicking on it. Now it's going to give me access to the red, green, and blue values on these lights. So let's say I want blue. I'm just going to drag red down to 0, drag green down to 0, make sure blue's at 100%. And I can now record blue for the side patterns. Side patterns blue. Just like that, done. Let's say I want to do green. I bring green up, drop blue down, record, side patterns, whatever, green. So hopefully that makes sense. That's how you program that. Now let's get into, so that applies to intensity, to color, to everything. Let's get into effects. So let's say I need some side pattern effects. Now what I'm going to do is I don't want them to have any colors when I program effects, because for the most part we want effects in our lights to be independent of colors. And sometimes if you have a color loaded on a playback button, it'll kind of affect the way it appears when you're programming. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to go to groups, grab my side patterns, go back to show. Then I'm going to click this up arrow here. This is just going to give me a larger programming interface that's easier to work with. Then I'm actually going to click this side arrow too, and that just blows it up nice and big. So I want to do effects on the color value. You can do intensity effects too if you wanted. I'm going to do effects on the color on these side patterns. The techniques are the same. I'm going to switch to the effects tab over here. These values do mirror themselves. You can do the same stuff over here that you can here. I just prefer this interface. So the swing. The swing is how much this effect is going, like what the size of this effect is essentially, like how big is it? How big does it look? How big is the adjustment? That's the swing. Speed is fairly obvious. Bring my speed up. Very cool. Go to my effects, or the mode, I'm sorry. You can adjust the direction of effects. You can adjust kind of how it processes effects. These I'll just take playing with. This one is one we use pretty frequently on most of our effects. The multiplier just makes it go really fast. You can take your current speed and multiply it if you wanted. Again, that's not something we do a whole lot. The wave is how you make it look cool, really. You play with different wave values, and it will, it's really easier when you see it, but it kind of creates that like train looking effect of sorts. And you can play with different levels to get different sparkly looks and that kind of thing. Really, effects programming just comes down to playing with it till you have something that you like. Delay, shift, wait, and step we don't use a whole lot because it makes it look kind of blocky. But if you make something cool with them, great. So this is a kind of a dumb looking effect right now, but it'll do. There's an effect. So I'm going to record this effect, and you notice that goes away conveniently to give me space here. We're just going to say side bat, whatever, Bart effects. Yellow thing. Cool. So there I've saved my my effect for them. I'm going to do the same thing with the intels real quick. I actually need to turn them on here so I can see them. There we go. Cool. I just fired them up. I'm going to go to my groups, make this smaller, grab the intels, go to show. I'm actually going to use my intel on control here so that I can see them as I'm looking at them. There we go. Okay, so intels are a little more complex. Shocking, right? They are actually, right now they're kind of in their default home position. They're just pointed straight up, which is not super helpful for effects programming. Typically what I do when I'm programming is I work off of the position preset I have that is most in people's faces, if that makes sense. So as you know, Face Melt 2.0 or any version of Face Melt, the lights are tilted down pretty low, especially any of our floor lights are going to be pretty low. So I will get them in a position and I'll turn them on like that. Then from there, I will go effect programming. So I've got Intel selected. Yes, I do. I'm going to pull up my little panel here, and it remembered this, which is nice. I'm already in the effects. Onyx is really cool. It remembers what you were doing, which is awesome. I'm going to set my swing. We're doing a, oh, and this is the cool thing. With Intels, you can do color effects, but that's dumb. Because they scroll, it doesn't look good. Typically pan, tilt, and intensity effects. We're going to do a pan tilt here because this is the most control. So you remember the swing from the side patterns? You have control over how big the swing of the pan is and the tilt. And so you can create a circle if you make them the same, or you can kind of just create different shaped effects of sorts if you set them differently. Again, it's playing with it. Turn my speed up here. Right now they're kind of doing like a wave sort of thing to top left to top right. You can pick a figure for them to follow. That kind of, it interplays with the swing pan and the swing tilt. Right now they are pretty much doing a circle. If I make this slower, there we go. So right now they're kind of just doing a basic circle. Again, you've got your mode, little fewer options, but you can control their direction and all that good stuff. Rotation, actually I'm a little unfamiliar with what rotation does. Y'all figure it out and let me know. Wave, again, same thing. This is how you create effects where lights they're not all just, whoo, why am I moving my hands? You can't see my hands. That's where they're all they're all moving together in essence. Wave kind of diffuses that and just makes it look different. And so you get different looks based on which ones you click. Again, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of instruction here. This is how you get to the panel, this little arrow. And just play with it. And of course, as usual, our directive with effects is that they don't hit people in their eyes. And so you kind of just have to watch out for that as you're programming, which is why I program on face melt for the most part. Because if it's fine on face melt, it's going to be fine on most of our other positions, and it won't cause issues. I was going to ask if you had questions, but why would I do that? Thank you all for bearing with me. I know this has been kind of long. Geez, how long have I been talking? Geez, 15 minutes. I'm sorry. If you have any questions, let me or Austin Benalis know. He's our lighting team lead. He is actually pretty well versed in programming as of this recording in September 2021. And I imagine will be even more so following this, as you all will be. So let's figure this out together. Let's have fun. I appreciate you all. Thanks for your hard work. See you soon. Bye.